So one big moment I took away from the experience was I was in charge of designing the aqueduct, which meant like measuring and surveying the land and sitting. It took me months. It was all by hand and calculator in my little house. And I spent like 4 months doing sine over cosine and trying to figure out like what the elevation change was so that I could figure out what the size of the pipes were, all following this book that I got from the Peace Corps office, which was like how to build rural aqueducts in Nepal. Of course, I'm in the Dominican Republic. And I was sitting there every morning, 3 or 4 hours a day, doing this work for the community, of course, right? And after that time period, my neighbor, Luciano, came to me and he's like, hey, Brad, do you have a second? I said, yeah, sure, what's up? And he's like, I just want to let you know, and this is very like culturally like subtle messages being sent to me in this very like Dominican way. And he's like, I just want to let you know that some of the community is like actually quite upset with you. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you know, they're wondering what you're doing because you haven't been working at all for the last 4 months. And I remember standing there like staring into Luciano's eyes and thinking like, oh, wow, right. Because what is work, right? Like if you grow up in a place where work means physical movement, physical labor, and I mean like back-breaking labor, and then there's some guy sitting over in his little house, not doing anything, like that's not working. And he's right. And then like, what do you say in response, right? And so, you know, I explained that like, oh, well, what do I do? Sine over cosine? I didn't know what to say. I just said, no, but I've been spending time, and I showed him all this work I've been doing, calculating out the change of elevation that dictates how much size of the pipe, so you can decide what pressures in the pipes and all these like complex things, which by the way, I only knew were effective because of some book. And like that blew me away. I was like, how do I know that what I'm doing is actually gonna work? And then it just all goes back to education. It goes back to the fact that from my upbringing and where I'm from, like I trust a book. I trust a book that says how to build gravity flow aqueducts in Nepal with all of these calculations will be as effective in the Dominican Republic because I'm in the hills and it's a gravity flow aqueduct, but I don't really know. It taught me so much about the things that we have in our brain and the knowledge that we have, because when you think about it, which is really hard, if you've had the opportunity to go to school and university or maybe graduate work, like in order to imagine what it would be like to be Luciano or all of my neighbors and friends in the Dominican Republic, you would literally have to erase everything that you learned in school, but more importantly, anything you've ever read. And so trying to navigate a project where nobody in the community was looking at this project from the same perspective as I was, only for the lack of opportunity of going to school, and then being able to explain that in a second language that I was learning, like it was a really, really overwhelming and also really gratifying experience, because there was a moment when we turned the taps on after 1 year and 8 months and everybody got water. But to be forced into a position of trying to explain something when clearly the power of education was so obvious, because the sequential way in which my brain has been trained is only a result of where I was born, not necessarily the result of any other factor like intelligence. My neighbors and friends were equally as intelligent as I. They just had a different path in life as a result of where they were born. And I've never forgotten that, and it's pervasive in all of the work that I've done.